sit in the hard with your kids. And I think there is that sweet spot where we can be there for them. We can nurture the relationship, but we can still hold the line and say, like, I'm doing this because it's the best thing for you, for your development, for your health, and for your overall well-being, really.
Today, we're talking about one of the most important issues of our time, our relationship with technology. Have you ever felt that nagging anxiety, knowing you're on your phone too much, wishing you could do better, but shrugging it off because it feels like everyone's the same? Or maybe you wondered what to do with your kids, afraid that if you mess it up, the damage can't be undone. If that's you, you're not alone, and today's episode is for you. My guest, Andrea Davis of Better Screen Time, is giving us the tools, words, and confidence we need to take back control. She breaks down how to set boundaries without shame, how to have those tricky conversations with your kids, and how to actually use our phones as a tool to live better. This conversation gave me practical steps I'd never heard before anywhere, and left me feeling like change isn't just possible, it's totally doable. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lizzy. I'm excited to be here.
So happy to have you. And I know you're on a quick trip visiting us, so we're so lucky we got you in person today.
Yes, I love visiting Utah. It's so fun to be here.
It's a good place. So let's just start. Give us a little intro to who you are for someone who may be new to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Andrea Davis. I have a business called Better Screen Time. I have 5 kids. My oldest is 20. She's currently serving a mission for our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She is in the Dominican Republic, which is where I serve my mission. Yeah,
no
so
way.
It's very cool. Different mission, but same country. So I'm getting to relive some of those mission experiences with her. It's been super fun. She's been out a year this month. And then I have a senior, a junior, a son who's a freshman. So I've got 3 in high school. And then my youngest is in 6th grade. She's 11. So 4 girls, 1 boy. My husband, Tyler, is a mechanical engineer, works as a software engineer. He works on infrared cameras and a lot of things that I don't understand, but he's awesome. We've been married, I guess, almost 23 years, and we're both originally from Idaho, but we've never lived there being married. We currently live in Hood River, Oregon. So, yeah,
so good.
That's a little bit about me.
Awesome family. Thanks for sharing that. And tell us a little bit about what you do. Better Screen Time is your business that you run.
Yes. So I help families worry less about technology and connect more with their kids. Like, that's my whole goal. And I started that in 2018, and it really was born out of my own need to try to figure technology out. So going way back when my husband and I were first married, he was in grad school at Purdue, and I had a really good friend there who was an avid reader. Like, she read everything. And I was like, Rachel, what did your parents do to instill this love of reading in you? And she said, oh, well, we didn't have a TV growing up. And I was like, really? And I was genuinely curious. And so I went home and I told my husband, I'm like, what would you think if we just put the TV in the closet and we use it like an appliance and we'll just pull it out when we need it? And he's not really into sports. I know this wouldn't fly like every home, but he was like, okay, like, again, he's like practical engineer. And so we did it. So we put our TV in the closet and we would pull it out for special occasions like family movie night, the Olympics. And that was really how we tried to kind of just safeguard our kids from tech, and that worked pretty well for a long time. But then our kids got older, and we made a cross-country move from Illinois to Oregon, where we now live, and our oldest daughter was 12 at the time. And this was just that era when people were starting to get phones. And it was one of those things where I feel like it just crept in. And that happened to us. We were in this new town where we didn't know anyone. And I wanted to be able to get a hold of my daughter and help her to know where to get off the bus. And she also had these friends that she was leaving behind in middle school who were getting phones. And I wanted her to be able to stay in touch with them. And so we handed over an abandoned smartphone, just an old phone that we had. And was kind of like, here you go. And just to be clear, like, this kid is like the ultimate oldest child, like the kind of kid that cleans her room without being asked. And so it just, in my mind, it was just clearly a communication device. She was super responsible. And that was as far as I thought through it. Well, fast forward a few months later, and I remember her coming home from school one day, and she grabbed her after school snack. She grabbed her bowl of cereal, and she's spooning her cereal into her mouth with one hand, but then she's doing this, with the other hand.
For
She's
those of you
scrolling.
listening, just swiping,
Yes,
scroll.
swiping, not talking to me. And it used to be one of those moments when I would ask, like, how was your day? And we would connect. And I just had this moment where I'm like, where did my kid go? Well, a few months after that, I'm on my own phone scrolling, and I come across a social media post from my daughter. This is way back in the era of Musical.ly. That was like the big app back then. And she was lip syncing about the words to a song, and she was singing about a Glock. And she had her hand to her head, held her hand to her head like this, so in the shape of a gun. And that, for lack of better words, like mentally pulled a trigger inside of me. And I was like, we're so done with the smartphone. And I just had this moment where I'm like, we failed her. Like, we totally failed this. And so I talked to my husband and I just said, we need to hit the reset button. And he agreed. And so we went back to a brick phone. So again, this was the era when there weren't starter phones that you could really lock down. And even Apple's screen time didn't even exist in this era. So
Wow.
there just wasn't a lot available. And so we did. We went back to a brick phone. I'll never forget that conversation in the kitchen. Like, she's got tears streaming down her face. I've got tears streaming down my face because I feel like I've failed her as a parent. And I'm said, this isn't your fault. This is really powerful technology. And we gave you too much too soon. And so it was in that moment that I just decided that I needed to use my background in teaching. I was a teacher before I stayed home with my kids to teach parents so they could either A, skip that experience altogether and learn from my mistakes, or B, know that it was never too late to turn things around. And so that's what I tell parents. Like, it's never too early to prepare, and it's never too late to turn things around. And I really believe that. And that is why a better screen time exists.
Oh, I I really love the fact that it's not like binary. Like once you give the phone, that's all you can do. Because I have heard that from so many
Yeah,
friends. Like, well, this has happened now, but what can I do? I could never take their phone away.
right.
And I'm like, but what if you could?
You
What if
could.
you can?
Yeah,
And so to think that even if you've made a mistake and given it too soon, and whether you realized it, whether you had a feeling, anything, I don't really care, to think, well, it doesn't really matter.
yeah.
Once you know better, you can still do better.
Exactly. And I think parents think they don't want to injure, you don't want to injure your relationship with your kids. But to be realistic, your relationship with your kids is going to be far worse because of all of the arguments and the problems that are going to arise from this phone if they're too young to have it, and they just it's your relationship's going to be far worse than it will be to reset, repair. And that's why I talk a lot about the relationship, because obviously, like, that's a key part of this. And the most important part, I believe, is our relationship with our family and with our kids. And we all make mistakes, but that is one of my favorite lines. Like, when you know better, you do better.
So good. I also love the fact that you are coming at it from such a place of empathy, that you're not saying like I did it perfectly and that's why I
Yeah.
can teach you. That it's like I know what it feels like to make a mistake, and you don't have to be ashamed in that, and you don't have to beat yourself up or just say, like we talked about before, like all is done now
Yeah.
and doom and gloom, but I can't do anything about it. And we talk a lot on this podcast about reclaiming your voice and making your impact. And I think that's really empowering for a mom to think, if it feels like that's just too scary or it would hurt my relationship, just what you said, well, what will hurt your, like, you are actually choosing what kind of relationship hard you want to face. You are going to face hard either way.
Yes.
And if it's more hard to let them have it and deal with worse consequences, then deal with the one right in front of you, but then know it's going to get better from there. Like, that's very empowering, I think, for moms to hear and dads to hear, to say it's worth the hard now and I can do this. What are tips from you in those conversations, knowing maybe these parents have never drawn a line, or maybe they're not used to setting boundaries, or they're more afraid of their kids. Like, how do you coach parents through that?
Yeah, well, I think mindset is huge. So just thinking about why are you doing this? Like, what's your why? I'm doing this because I want to do what's best for my kid in the long term. And all the research and everything that we've seen over just even the past 5 years shows us that kids need that time to develop. Their brains need to develop. Their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. It's not fully formed till we're in our mid 20s. And this technology has proven to be incredibly powerful. And so as a parent, if you now know this, you first have to just think, okay, what I'm doing this so that in the long run, even though it's going to be hard now, it's going to hurt a little bit now because I'm going to get pushback. In the long run, I'm doing what's best for my kids. And I think just being honest with your kids and telling them, because I told my daughter, I'm like, I made a mistake. We just didn't get it. We didn't understand. And for parents to also we have to give ourselves some grace because we were thrown into this without a lot of information. And our parents obviously didn't go through this. We didn't as adolescents. And so it's a big part of parenting today. So I think acknowledging that it is hard and having that mindset and a lot of communication and love with your kids. Because obviously after going back to the brick phone, and my daughter like buried that as far down into her backpack as it would go, like that was embarrassing to be a middle schooler without a smartphone. And I tried to just acknowledge that yeah, this is hard. And I don't know what it feels like because I've never had to deal with that. But sit in the hard with your kids. And I think there is that sweet spot where we can be there for them. We can nurture the relationship, but we can still hold the line and say like, I'm doing this because it's the best thing for you, for your development, for your health, and for your overall well-being, really.
I love that. Knowing a strong enough why can empower us to do some things that feel too scary to do otherwise. I also I saw some clip from a parenting expert who talked about emotions. All emotions are allowed, but all behaviors are not.
Oh, I like that.
And so just thinking about like, okay, in how we handle this and to what we're doing, like you can feel sad. You can feel really disappointed and frustrated and embarrassed and anything you need to go through right now. And I'm feeling a lot of emotions too.
Yeah.
And being open and like expressing that. What a great learning experience. Again, it can be so easy to be scared of our kids, but it's like if you know truth is on your side and you know the reasons why you're doing it, and then you can be open and authentic and vulnerable, that's actually an opportunity, I think, to model how we go through hard things and to show them how to go through something hard, because it would be hard.
Totally.
For sure.
Totally. Yeah. And I think about as years passed and there were just experiences that I had that taught me that it was okay to hold those boundaries. And I remember our middle school principal at the time would send home a lot of just notes about technology and just kind of tips for parents. And I thought, okay, who better to talk to about this than a middle school principal because he sees it every day. And so I made an appointment with the principal and I went in to the principal's office and I was like, okay, tell me, Brent, like, your son, his youngest son was the same age as my oldest daughter. So he'd already been through 4 kids. And I'm like, hey, from your seasoned parental experience, like, does your son have a phone? And he was like, no. And knowing that most kids did. And I said, but don't you get any pushback for that? And he said, every day. And as a like first time parent, parenting a teenager, I thought, okay, that's going to be part of this journey, especially when it comes to technology.
Yep. I feel lucky. We're probably about the same age, but I had kids a little young. This is my guess that we probably are, but my oldest is 13.
Okay.
And I really feel like that wave of those first 5 to 8 years of phones, it was just the wild, wild west.
Yes, it was.
It's different now. Like we have heard so many more horror stories, much worse than yours. Mm-hmm. And we've seen whether it's siblings or friends of ours whose kids have failed. And probably not their fault or their parents, right? It was pushed and there were $1 billion campaigns marketing
Yeah.
it and saying it was safe. And we all were it was a really tricky time. What would you say to parents now navigating, knowing that so much more is available? I mean,
Hmm.
even in the state of Utah, there's been a big push against social media for kids. And why is this a part of their life? And it shouldn't be at all. What are your recommendations now in navigating technology and when to introduce and what to be really thoughtful about?
Yeah, I love that question. I do really love Jonathan Haidt's New Norms and Anxious Generation. And there is pushback for that as well. Like, there are people who are like, you can't just pick an age. And it's true. And since my background is in secondary education and like adolescence, I I do know some things about adolescent development. And obviously, like as a parent, you recognize that each kid is different
Yeah.
and that you can't just pick an age. But I really love having just some social norms of where we're saying, okay, let's like at least wait till age 14 for a smartphone and like kind of wait till age 16 for social media. I think those are like good, at least base practices. But as parents, you certainly need to trust your gut, listen to your intuition. You know your child better than anyone. And it's really important to just gauge how well have they done with the technology that they've been given so far up to this point. And when we were trying to figure this all out with our kids, we had to start over. And I thought, okay, I still have 4 more kids that I have to do this with, and I don't want to mess up again. And so, how can I do this better? So we actually sat all of our kids down and we asked them 2 questions. And I invite every parent to do this with your family. We said, what does it mean to be responsible? And what does it mean to be emotionally mature? Which is kind of a big word for kids, but they get it. And so we started just making a list. So they're like, okay, if you're responsible, you get up for school on your own, you do your homework without being asked, you do your chores, all those things. And then if you're emotionally mature, you're kind to your siblings, you don't throw a fit when you don't get your way. And, the list went on. So we made a big list. And when we got to the end, I told the kids, these are the things a person needs to do before they're ready for a phone. And my kids were like, oh,
Thanks for the
are you
setup, Mom.
kidding me? Yeah. But I was like, truly, I had to learn this through a bad experience. And again, this was an era when there were nobody really was talking about a certain age. And even people that we normally looked up to, like the APA and other people that we really wanted to give us some strong screen time guidelines, they really kind of were weakening their guidelines in a time when we needed somebody to step up and say, like, truly, we all need to delay and wait. And there have been some great voices who have done that. I know, like here in Utah, Colin Karcher was amazing at that.
Yeah.
I got started about the same time he did, and I had no idea that he existed because I didn't live here. But he was a strong voice for that, and just certainly a few other advocates. But really taking those questions to your kids is really powerful. And then what we did is we actually turned those questions into a self-evaluation.
We did that with my daughter just
No way.
recently, and it was
Nice.
so good.
I love that.
So good.
How did the conversation go? Now I'm curious.
So she had pushed for a while, and it was to get a watch, not a phone, which is, there's a lot of things you can avoid on a watch, which was helpful.
Yes.
But that was a much easier way than, like, I just love that you're like, yeah, sure, we can kind of say around ages just because it's helpful to say maybe wait at least until this time,
Yeah.
possibly.
Mm-hmm.
And she is very responsible and so socially aware. And she's one of my best friends, like
Yeah.
an incredibly capable human. But the realization for her, like, if I don't have impulse control when my sibling says something mean and I want to just lash back out, what's to stop me from sending a quick text?
Yeah.
Like, it actually really connected in her mind. And she had been asking for a watch, and we held out, I think, longer than a lot of people I know, but it was like, until you really can do these things. And we went down the whole checklist regularly, and not perfectly, because am I perfectly in emotional control all the time? No.
You're right.
Unfortunately, no.
Yes.
But do I at least have a pause before I just react to things that frustrate me or
Yeah.
make me mad? And am I responsible that Even just the fact that like watches and phones are really expensive.
Yeah.
If you can't trust your
Yes.
child to not lose $1,000 phone, regardless of what's on the phone, are you going to
Yeah.
give them your nice watch?
Right.
I think most parents would be like, oh, this is my nice watch with the glass face. I don't trust my child with that. But then they're like, I don't know how to draw a line on a watch, a phone. And it's like, well, you do it on other things, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
I think for her, it made, even though she was frustrated and she was the last one of all her friends and of her school class and of all the people,
Yeah.
thankfully her school locks them all in a box.
Love
And
that.
so they
Love
actually
that.
don't always have it in their face, not just the device, but the comparison of who has it or
Yeah.
not.
I
So
love
if
that.
they bring it to school, fine, it goes right in the box. Then if they need to call a parent, they can get it out with permission. Um, that took the edge off a little, but those
Mm-hmm.
questions were extremely helpful. And I was so glad that I found your download because it was just like, now it's not some arbitrary rule that I'm kind of
Yeah.
trying to set. It was like, it's official and this woman has a company so you can trust her, but also it was intuitive to her as she looked
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah. And I think that's just something I learned teaching middle schoolers. I'm like, anytime you can give the power to them, I mean, to adolescents, like that, it's just so much better. The
Yeah,
conversation goes so much better than if you're just laying down laws. And so that came from my background, but also just my failed experiment with my daughter, right? And then we ended up adding a parent self-evaluation as well, because as a parent, are we ready? And like, have we talked about sexting and cyberbullying and online predators? And geez, the list is so long of the things that we need to talk to our kids about. And I think as parents, we just don't realize what exactly we're handing over and the amount of preparation that needs to go into helping our kids be ready for that big responsibility.
totally agree. I forgot about the parent evaluation. It was so helpful for me as well.
Yeah.
And thinking if I can't have a conversation to protect her from some of these things because I think she's too young, then do I really want to hand her a device that
Yeah.
might have those things on them?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Right, exactly, because you want to be preventative and not reactive, right? And that's
Hmm.
the past decade. That's how it's all been with technology. It's like, okay, print out the cell phone contract and put on parental controls. And those are what I call tech band-aids. They're not tech boundaries. And it's not that we can't use those things and they can't be helpful, but just when you were talking about like the impulse control and that sort of thing, that's why I'm not really a fan of tech contracts. It's a really popular thing, but to ask a teenager to give them a list of 20 things and have them say that they will never do any of those 20 things and then sign it, like that's a big ask. Like how many of us as adults could be given a list of like 20 things that we'll say we'll never do? Like, I mean, but so I think what's just a better approach is just the conversation approach. You have the boundaries, but you have the conversations and you explain the why rather than printing out a piece of paper and signing it and then like being disappointed when your kids can't hold up that standard because they're just kids.
Yep. I again we talk how do we reclaim our voices whether it's as parents or for ourselves and holding boundaries and help help each other make the impact that we're made to make. Let's take this now to the older kids who might start monitoring themselves, thinking about a college age student, or let's talk about moms for a second. Like this really is focused on kids. And again, everybody listening, I would do this for every child. Don't say you've done it once for your oldest and then say, well, everybody kind of knows the rules. Like, be just as intense like you would about a driver's license, about buying them something expensive that could break, whatever your analogy is. It matters for every child. And
Yes.
we are the guardians of the gate. And we talked about this a little bit before we went on air. Like, who is doing your parenting? 30 years ago, we may have had, like, you may have been able to just be like hands off
Yeah.
and it may have been fine because the outside world really couldn't get into your home unless you went to Blockbuster and rented a video and willingly put it in the VCR or your
Yes.
child did behind your back, but they would have had to have a driver's license. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
there was so many natural boundaries and barriers and gates before any of that ever entered their mind and their heart. Nowadays, there is no boundary or barrier unless we're really, intentional about it. And so, one, that matters so much. And I don't want to leave this part of the conversation, I'm actually sure we'll come back to this, to de emphasize for anyone listening in, you are the guardian. And just like if you were a gladiator and there was some huge lion coming in, we have to treat it that seriously. I feel passionately about this. I'm an associate director at 3 private schools. I have seen the impact over and over for parents who aren't at the gate and who don't care and who say kids will be kids. And my parents didn't really oversee everything I was doing. Why are you being so intense? And I'm just like, because we're not raising our kids in the same world.
Yeah.
So I can't speak strong enough to how much we need to do in this area, and find Andrea's resources as Better Screen Time on Instagram and your website. They've been super helpful for us, and we are going really slow and taking it
Love it.
slow with our oldest. But let's turn now maybe to now you're entering college and you're not really checking in with a parent, or someone's not really doing that, or the women our age, right? When we think about what social media can do or what screens can do for women and men to take away our voices and stop us from making the impact we could make otherwise, what have you seen to be helpful? Are there guidelines? Are there things that you think about in that space?
Yeah, so I remember sending my oldest off to college and knowing that some of the real boundaries that we had in place, like no screens in bedrooms or bathrooms, were going to be a little harder to implement in college, and that those devices would go into the bedroom because she was in a dorm and you're not going to leave your phone out where anybody can just take it or grab it. And so kind of one simple guideline I gave her was just see if you can not use screens on your bed. Just use them at your desk, or if you want to lay on the floor, that's great. But I talk a lot about screen-free sanctuaries, which I think that's what your bedroom should be. And that's why we really advocate for no screens in the bedroom. But I actually live by that myself. And it did start with me wanting to model those habits for my kids. So when we sat down years ago and we were rethinking all of this and realized that just like the TV in the closet was the least of our concerns, I was, we sat down to create a family tech plan and we talked about where do we use screens, where, when, what, how long. And the where was okay, no screens in the bedrooms or bathrooms. And the first thing my kids said was, well, Mom, you do that. And I was like, oh, you're right, I do. And so I committed to my kids that I would not do that. So that's been 8 years ago now. And I've stuck with that. I keep my phone out of my bedroom. And I love what it's brought me. It's brought me connection to a higher power. It's brought me a better relationship with my spouse, better rest, better sleep. But and so I could talk about that because I think that no matter where we're at, if we're a college student or we're an empty nester, where we can have personal boundaries, that we just decide I want to live this boundary because and then what are your whys? I want to have a better relationship with my spouse, or I want to have a better relationship with God, or I want to make sure I'm getting good sleep, just showing up as my best self. And so again, everyone's situation and circumstances are different. So maybe keeping the phone out of the bedroom isn't the thing for you, but that is a pretty good one. I also just decided long ago that I wouldn't use social media on Sunday. And that was I just wanted one day where I knew I was connecting with my family and I didn't have that distraction. And I was also just, again, connecting with my Father in heaven. And it's been such a good boundary for me to have. And so that's helpful. We also, our Wi-Fi shuts off at 10:30, and we think we can use tech to help us. There's a lot of great settings that you can apply on your phone, focus modes. I have a make memories mode. So whenever I open the app that's all trails, if I'm going on a hike, then it turns everything off except for my texts and my camera. So it's just kind of that reminder that, okay, I'm entering this, whether it's, family focus time or you're focusing to work, I'm entering this focus time where I'm going to set my distractions aside. So I think having some boundary around social media is just absolutely necessary, but you can determine what that is. It's really different for everyone. So for me, no social media on Sunday. That's been a great boundary. But I also take some social media sabbaticals over the summer for I mean, I've done it for months at a time, and that has been challenging as a creator, as someone who's trying to share a message, because it's definitely affected my numbers and follower count and those things in the past. But I've never regretted it. I've never regretted that break. And so, and even as a college student, it might just be like you have certain hours a day when you're blocking your social media. And again, there's no shame in using whatever app or focus mode you need to help you live those boundaries, because they're just addicting. Like they're calling our name all hours of the day. So those are a few
Wow.
thoughts.
So many good ideas that I haven't thought about. Thank you for that whole list. And I was thinking about in the natural world, we have so many things that signify when we're stopping something and starting something, and when we're entering a new space that's used for certain things and not. But how the phone was created is that everything's good all the time and needed all the time.
Yeah.
But just like I wouldn't wear high heels all day, every day, or tennis shoes all day, every day. Well, I actually prefer that. If I have to choose one, I choose that one.
Yeah.
We have these natural things that we choose. And to be just as intentional about, okay, right now, this is the time that my phone is this kind of a tool. It's a hammer right now, and it's a flashlight later,
Yeah.
and it's a actual phone at another point, to know what I'm really using it for and to be thoughtful of that. I'm even thinking, man, I kind of want to do a little self-reflection and just journal, like, what am I using my phone for?
Yeah.
And not only how can I not use it for bad to stop me in things, but how could I use it better? Like that, like the memories time.
Yes.
Like then
Totally.
you're actually thinking, not only am I hiking right now, I'm trying to make memories.
Yeah. What's my point? I'm not just punishing myself to like be away from my phone, but like what's my purpose in this?
Hmm.
And we actually have a self-evaluation for parents. I think it's called Am I in the driver's seat? And it goes through some self-reflection questions of how you're using your phone, and that's like a good starting point. I love your idea of journaling, because again, that's you're processing and you're like committing. When you write it down,
Hmm.
you're committing to change, and that's so powerful.
Ooh, I'm going to do this.
I love it.
So good. Let's talk about the connection piece and recommendations on that side. I think we've won from like how to stay away from the worst case scenarios and
Yeah.
some thoughts around that, and then now how to use it for good. Now let's talk about the connection and what you recommend there for whether it's you with your child as they're navigating it, or again,
Mm.
college age or as you're older. Like, how does that impact your relationship with technology?
Yeah. Again, like I'll share some recommendations and things that have worked well for me, but it is really important, like listen to your intuition, listen to the spirit, whatever speaks to you on the change that you personally need to make, because it's different for all of us. But I remember as I started better screen time, and I ironically was having to use my phone so much more. I use my phone so much more than I ever did before I started this. And I remember going on a date night with my husband, and just I think he went in to grab some food or something, and I'm just sitting in the car. And so I'm like, yep, Instagram, pulled it up. I'm not just like scrolling, I'm legitimately like answering people's questions and like DMs and comments. And so it's like, I feel like I'm being efficient, right? Because I like efficiency. I think we all have different reasons why we get on our phone. In my
Hmm.
mind, that's like one of mine. Like, I'm being efficient, I'm using my time wisely. But then I remember him coming back and getting in the car, and I didn't just promptly put the phone away. And he didn't say anything, but I could just kind of tell there was just kind of this feeling like, oh, this phone's suddenly in the middle of date night. And so I decided to just start leaving my phone at home on date night, because I'm like, obviously, I don't have the self control to not just put it away. And the only time I take is like if we go skiing or something like that, where I'm like, I could see us possibly getting separated and
Yeah.
this could be bad. But most of the time, we're literally like sitting at dinner right together. Why do I need my phone? And if he has his and he has better self control, the kids can reach him, or the babysitter, or whoever, they can
Hmm.
reach him. And that works well because he doesn't use social media. And so again, it's going to be
And he's not a
different.
sports guy,
He's
so he
not a
doesn't have
sports
ESPN
guy.
calling to him.
He's not checking stats. If anything, I'm the worst one with that, like checking the BYU football score, right? But yeah, so I think it will be different for like the dynamics different for every partnership or marriage, but just being mindful of like how am I possibly prioritizing my phone over other people? And I again, that's one of those things I have no regrets about leaving my phone at home on date night. And I think too, like we do use our phone for a lot of useful things. So when you're thinking about connecting with your kids, I know I see this a lot on social media, like the minute your kids walk in, you should put your phone down. And there's a part of that I absolutely love and agree with. And there's a part of that, the mom part of me is where like, well, sometimes I really am, I'm being purposeful with it and I'm scheduling carpool or I'm whatever. So something that I love that my friend Emily Churkin says, she says to live your tech life out loud. And so I just tell my kids what I'm doing. And not only is that helpful in communicating that you're not trying to prioritize your phone over them, but it also helps you to be accountable because you think, okay, well, I said I'm doing this thing. I didn't say I was just scrolling Instagram. And so then I'm going to put my phone away. And that's really helpful. But just again, I tell families like think about those screen-free family rituals that maybe you used to have that you don't have anymore because the phones have gotten in the way. So I'm thinking like a walk after dinner, family game night. I mean, just family dinner. I think that's a common one that people all know anymore. Like we should have a device-free dinner, but they still can sneak in and get in the way. So what are the things that is there a time during the week when the family can connect and you can truly like put all the phones in a basket or a charging station or just put them away? And I just think we have to be intentional about that anymore. Or they really will take over our relationships.
So many great tips and thoughts through all of this. I feel like we kind of got the cheat code because if you find someone's Instagram or their business, it's like, okay, I'm going to search out all the things and how can I find all the things, right? I want to two quick questions before we close. One, can we talk about red flags for just a minute? And again, we talked about this at the time of the filming. There's been some hard things happening in our world with an assassination, and I think we're still not totally sure what happened
Yeah.
in the mind of the young man who shot Charlie Kirk. But we know that there was certainly media playing into that, and it was things he was accessing from his phone that led him to do something I'm guessing he wouldn't have done, and
Yeah.
changed his mind. I know you don't lead with fear, and I know that's not your thing, but are there things that you would look at and say, this one is a red flag, and this has gone from, hey, let's be thoughtful, to like, you need to really hit the stop sign and do something at this point?
Yeah, exactly. And as we talked about before, the world is trying to parent our kids and a lot of information and influence is coming through the screen. So it's more than just hours spent. Again, there's so much conversation about like how much screen time and like how many minutes, but there's something so much bigger and deeper happening there. It is messages and ideas and people that are influencing your children. And our kids and our teens are at the most impressionable stage of life because their brains are literally deciding what to hang on to and what to let go of. And so, as we're thinking about red flags, I mean, first of all, if you notice that your child or your teen is letting go of a hobby or a passion that they used to just absolutely love, and they don't care about that anymore or as much, and you notice that they're spending a lot more time on screens, that's a red flag. Because those hobbies and those activities, those passions, those ground us. They keep us, they keep our brains active, but they keep us connecting with the real world. They help us see that the person in front of us is a real person with thoughts, feelings, ambitions, hard stories, a past. And I think the more that we look at a screen and we're just seeing people that way we're not seeing them for who they really are. I mean, think of how often, I mean, this is the first time you and I have met in person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just think, how often do we just see people through a screen and we might have one perception of them, but then we see them in real life and we see like a whole different dynamic inside of them. And so it's sucking the humanness really from our connections because I just think of this young man and I think, was he seeing these other people that might have different political ideals as human beings, or was he just seeing them as an ideal, as this political ideal? And so that's a red flag. Also, just in your conversations with your kids and teens, is there a certain idea or concept that they're really just latching onto that in your conversation, are they carrying a lot of hate or resentment? Because I think too, that's why we're asked to forgive and to love people, because what happens when we don't forgive is that we harbor those feelings and they fester. And then the online world only amplifies that. It only increases it. So in conversations, are your kids like really obsessed over something that is creating a lot of angst in their life? And it could also be just, are there like influencers or people that they're following that perhaps their values don't line up or match with your family's values or the things that you're trying to teach. And that's a sign like we got to course correct. And I think also there might be things that you just don't know. And that's why we do need to do tech checks and we need to see what our kids are viewing and seeing online. Because I know a lot of parents are like, oh, we need to respect their privacy. But I'll never forget being on a call with an FBI guy. And he said, you better believe you should be checking, because in all the circumstances where things have gone awry, there have just been warning signs all along, but they were online. And that is really easy to keep secretive. It's easy to keep quiet. And so it's just good to just be open with your kids and say, we are going to do tech checks. I'm not doing this to spy on everything or to like know every detail of every conversation you've had. It's my job to keep you safe. And these are conversations that we need to have. So those are a few red flags to watch out for.
So beautiful. I'm going to be using those and remembering those, and whether or not the information they're getting is from social media or online or offline. That's a really good checklist just in general. If your kid's not interested in the things they were interested in, if they're resentful or harboring things, like those are just helpful things to notice that there's something that's entering their brain.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually, like, you need to find out where it came from, but you know that something's coming from somewhere. Maybe it's a friend at school, like, but that influence is impacting them in a negative way. So great checklist, no matter if it's coming from your phone or not, or devices or not.
Yeah. And I think it's important to add that sometimes parents will be like, well, my kid doesn't have social media, so I don't need to worry about that. But the day of that assassination, my nieces go to UVU, and my niece texted my daughter who lives in Oregon, 17-year-old daughter who doesn't have social media, and she got a text of the video of the assassination. So here's my daughter who doesn't have social media on purpose, but still witnessed what happened. And it was visibly, like, it really shook her up. She was just in tears, like we all were, because none of us want to witness that on a screen. I mean, we weren't meant to. We weren't meant to process that. So I just want to emphasize how important it is for all of us to have those conversations, no matter how locked down you think your devices are or your kids aren't on social media. Just being really mindful of that things reach them regardless.
So good. Again, where can people find you? Better Screen Time on Instagram.
Yes.
Same on the website.
Yes, betterscreentime.com.
Okay.
Yep, those are the best places, ironically, on
But you
Instagram.
can't walk around with pamphlets handing them to all the families. So
That's right. Yep, it's the
Oh,
watering hole for the
that's what
parents.
we
So
do.
that's where you can find me.
So great. Well, thanks again for spending time. And if you have questions, DM Andrea. There's so much great content on the latest things that are coming up because we know technology is always changing. So having one plan now, a new app is introduced or other things, and Andrea stays on top of those things. So a great person to follow to just say, I don't have 10,000 hours to research everything new. This is your business. This is what you do. And you give us that shortcut to stay on top of things. So thank you for using your voice and impacting the world for good for all of us.
Thanks, Lizzy. Thanks for having me.
Friend, I hope this episode leaves you as empowered as it left me. Technology isn't going away, but that doesn't mean it gets to run our lives. We get to be in the driver's seat. Andrea's reminders and scripts are the handhold we need to reclaim our voice, set our families up for success, and use technology to serve us, not the other way around. If today's conversation helped you, share it with a friend, maybe your spouse, your college roommate, or your child, who would love the empowerment too. And if you haven't yet, hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Together, let's keep learning how to live with courage, stay true to what matters most, and make the unique impact only we can make.